Welcome everyone. My name is Orion and this is the Blueprint. So I wanted y'all to come in and tune into the idea of Bitcoin having another rally. Now, as you can see here, we have Bitcoin on the weekly chart. I want to show you Bitcoin's history. First and foremost, we're going to start in the area of 2010. As you can see, let me see if I can pick this up just a little bit. I know this is going to be a little bit more compressed than usual, but as you can see right here in this area, Bitcoin had its first rally around 2013 from like 1,273, coming from I'd say $300 to even $10 a share. And it's crazy to see that Bitcoin right now is around the 74,000, but rallied all the way to 126,000 for these last few years. Now, this is Bitcoin's history, and it's very important to understand this, because if you're a person that likes to study history, you know that things repeat itself most of the time. Now, in 2018, we had a rally. 2019, a rally as well. What followed along in 2021 was two more areas where Bitcoin reached its all-time highs in this year. But there was a lot of panic selling. There was a lot of people selling Bitcoin thinking that, okay, how did we go from 69,000 all the way to 15,000 here in this area? And to be honest, I should have added more to my position when it hit the 15,000s, but I was kind of skeptical as well too. Don't get me wrong, as an investor, you want to be very cautious and throwing a good amount of money, during times like that. But as you can see, it took from, I would say, 2022 July to September 2023, where we started to pick up, and there was a lot of buying pressure, causing another rally, from 26,000 all the way to 72,000, and then it consolidated here in this area. It continued to go up, reaching 108,000, and this was December 2024. Did another major pullback. Everybody was thinking, okay, that's the first time we'll see 100K, but we're a little bit, cautious, so let's do a pullback, and it did. It continued to sell again, reaching the level of 75,000. And this is where it gets interesting. Now Bitcoin has rallied, and it had touched this area right here. As you can see, Bitcoin touched this area here. That was 126,000. And the week, because I have it on the weekly chart, as you can see right here, on the weekly chart of October 2025, in this month, it was very important to let people know that Bitcoin has reached an all-time high and has broken blue sky territories. But whatever comes up must come down, and that is exactly what happened with Bitcoin. Bitcoin started to have a selling pressure. A lot of people started to take profit. Things happened in the news, and it was getting a little bit crazy. Now, as an investor here in this area, you start to think, okay, if we're on the weekly chart and these are multiple weeks of selling, consolidation, multiple weeks of selling, and here in this area, we lean more into consolidation. Some would say that this right here, this area right here that I highlight, could be a bottom. A lot of people are thinking, well, is this the bottom? We have the Iran war. We have the AI causing disruption. We have fears in economics. And not just that, but we also have the Fed meeting to determine the interest rates. So what would be the next move for Bitcoin? Let me get rid of all of these drawings here. And let me show you something that I see that's very, very interesting. Now, we all know that Bitcoin has reached the level of 60,000 here in this area. As you can see, let's follow. Bitcoin has reached 60,000, right? And now Bitcoin is at 74,000. I'm going to move it to the daily chart. We have a level of consolidation here. As you can see, this area of consolidation shows us that people are buying and selling Bitcoin, and it's not really moving up nor down. It is just staying in that same area. For a lot of people wanting to invest into this, it is a perfect time. Why? Because it gives them a time frame from February all the way now into March. So if we reach 60,000, then we sat on the level of 67,000. Now we're at 74,000. That is telling us that Bitcoin is either going to go in three scenarios. You know, if I can paint the picture for you, right? Bitcoin would go into this scenario. It has sold, come up, and what we would call a dead cat bounce. And it would continue lower. You know, that can be some type of speculation. People can get scared. And you're right. People who are holding on to Bitcoin can feel like, man, my portfolio balance has gone down. But it could be a good thing because it is a time to buy. So if you were to see the second scenario and to determine what I see is that it comes down, comes up, creates a double bottom or like a W, and it breaks all the way to the 90s, come back down to the 80s, and continues to go up. That would be the best case scenario for this area to be buying in right now. But with a lot going on in the world, like I mentioned, the war in Iran, you know, speculation on AI, and of course the Fed meeting in economics, there is another scenario. And I don't want this scenario to happen. Why? Because this is where time, you know, well, as a long-term investor, it gives you time, right? But the time that I'm thinking of is this. You know, we've come down to the lows. We came up, we came down again, and up and down. And it consolidates for a whole year until we find an area where people say, you know, the news came out good, or there's something going on with Bitcoin and people will start buying. That is a scenario that I don't like, but I do love. Why? Because it gives me time to add more to my position. But for people who are investors, you know, it's perfect. For traders, it's perfect. But for somebody that wants to see, you know, their asset class continue to go up, it's not so perfect. Why? Because they're going to be waiting. And yeah, I mean, it's an asset, you know, over time it'll grow. And if we, you know, look at history in the past on the weekly chart, we've known that Bitcoin has done some really, really great rallies. And it's something that even I would want to be a part of, you know, at the lows, which I have been buying here in this area. Despite the price being at the 75s or even 67 to 60s, I don't mind it. You know, I'm dollar cost averaging until I see this continue to go up, you know? So how crazy would that be, right? How many of you want to see Bitcoin rally? I know I do for sure, but this is my take on this asset right here. Bitcoin has been around for a while. I do see it something that's going to be there for the future. And as an investor, you should invest into it only because you know what it is. Not invest in it because everybody else is investing. Because if you don't know what this is, you're just gambling, right? You want to make sure you have all your information and know what it's going to be used for in the later term. But with that being said, this was my opinion on Bitcoin and sharing to you thoughts. And as you can see, I have levels here in this area. This was breaking, you know, the higher high, coming down to the lower low, and then the lower high. We'll see where Bitcoin ends up in a couple of weeks, and we'll tune back in. With that being said, please trade responsibly, and I'll see you on the next video.